don't know what he's up to. He's picking me like chicken, shucking me like corn, stewing me like an oyster. I mean...
Can I ask you something?
Honey, come on. The man's trying to get some rest.
No, that's okay. Go ahead, ask away.
I just got to know the Kennedy assassination. Did Oswald act alone?
Hey, that's for me to know and Oliver's...
I like your hair in the middle with the silver hair. How old are you? 75. Get the fuck out of here. Who killed JFK? I'm not going to read all those pages. Who do you think killed him? You think the government killed him? Ooh. Move it.
Now, the disruptor-in-chief, Elon Musk, who apparently has adopted the alias, at least he changed his social media handle to Harry Balls, tweeted this morning, "Democracy in America is being destroyed."
Yo, it's your boy, the Tesla King, Elon Musk. The boys always make my rocket shoot straight up, no homo. You bout to listen to the #1 JFK-related podcast on planet Mars. Now plug in your neural link for two numbnuts who aren't a waste of government spending, the BBB and JOEB.
Here's the BBB&JOEB, JOEB, and the BBB, baby, BBB&JOEB, rock, cock, and Joe Morelli, BBB&JOEB, JOEB, and the BBB, baby, BBB&JOEB, rock, cock, and Joe Morelli. We're coming in, only seeking the truth about JFK. It's a long-coming podcast crew. Tell 'em, Joe, here we go.
And here we go.
Here we go indeed. What's up, folks? It is Friday night. It is 7 p.m. Eastern, and it is another fantastic episode of the Lone Gunman Podcast we have for you. It's episode 339 tonight. Clandestine Conundrums.
Say that 5 times quickly.
No, thanks. Clandestine Conundrums. I wanted to call it something else, but we can't.
Fair
But
enough.
it's all good. It's all good. It kind of rolls off the tongue if you say it enough. Kind of. Let's start out by thanking Mr. John for his super chat. Always appreciated. Thank you, John. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And let's welcome some folks in here before we get started. We got Sally, first in line,
Sally?
wearing her sweet ruby T-shirt.
Yes.
What's up, Sally?
Did she send you a picture or video?
No.
She mentioned it.
Words for it.
She mentioned it in the pregame comments.
Well, here's the whole.
Oh, she said she's fat. I sent you the video thanking you both for the hard work. I don't know if the video is with the shirt, but we'll get it.
Our DMs are always open.
Yes. Slide in there.
Slide in.
Yes.
Tiny.
She did check in at 6 p.m. and did a timestamp, and I acknowledged that. So
Okay.
Yeah. Hello, Tiny.
Second in line, little Tiny. The Millennium Falcon is cleared hot. I, for one, am just a little bit stoked about the second season of Andor. The first season started off a little slow for me, but it got better. And the second season, 12 episodes, should be a banger. So, fingers crossed for that. Nerding out just a little bit there. Sorry. Zendar, what's up?
Zendar.
James Smith. Hopefully you got your cerveza by now. Yes. Southwest up in this house. What is up?
Southwest.
Our resident rocket queen, Colleen, is in the house. What's up, Colleen?
Colleen.
And thank you, Colleen. She slid in the DMs with a much needed video last night. So I want to thank Colleen for that. It came at just the right time. I needed a little infusion of that in my life. A little pick me up, if you will.
Hey, we all do.
Yes. Paul Cummings up in the house. What's up, Paul?
Hey, Paul.
Claude and Aunt Udine up in here from Galveston Island down there in the Gulf of America.
And Paula Jane, none other.
Yes, Paula Jane up in the house. What's up, Paula?
And Randall Brooks just commented, first time live, can't wait.
Oh, you're in for a treat, Randall Brooks. I'll tell you.
I don't know if you came here from Reddit. I made a post about an hour ago, but if you did, welcome. If you came from another,
if you didn't, just lie to Joe and say you did.
Yes.
So he feels a little better for posting on Reddit.
Yes. Hey, just and by the way, the Reddit posts and subscribers have made us almost reach 2,000. I think we are at 2,100. We are at 2093. So if you are watching this and you have not subscribed, please do. And I'm sure we'll be at 2,100 by next Friday. So
get us over the hump.
We were just at 2,000 a couple weeks ago.
I know. I want to get to where it says 2.1, Joe. 2.1.
We'll get there.
Yes.
Yeah.
We will. Yeah. And it will be a glorious moment.
Yeah. We have a good crew over here, Randall. And we just try to talk some rational JFK. And tonight we're going to be tackling two interesting topics.
We are.
Yeah. I'll let you kind of take it from there.
Yes, I will explain to everyone. Joe's going to be talking about Gary Underhill, of which a lot of unredacted documents came out in this latest release concerning the Gary Underhill story. And I didn't know anything about it before all that hullabaloo.
Yes.
But apparently it's been around for a while. Just, certain things have been redacted. And with a lot of these things, you can only go so far unless you start really looking into it. So, that's what we do around here.
I have some surprises for you, Rob, going back to Garrison, even our old pal Gary Schoner talking about Underhill. So, yes, it has been around in his letters to Weisberg, or this one was Penn Jones, actually. So, nice. Very interesting. So, yeah, but we'll get to that later.
Awesome. Yeah, and I figured, since we're talking about allegedly the CIA taking out people, okay, for possibly what they know on U.S. soil, I thought about something that I don't believe I've ever covered on the show before, Joe. And that is the death of Mary Pinchot Meyer. Right? Yeah. There was a book that came out some years ago to a great harangue called Mary's Mosaic by Peter Janney. And I keep kicking myself in the ass because I had the chance to buy the book in this bookstore, used bookstore in Frederick. And it was autographed by the author and all that stuff. And I didn't do it. It was like $3.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And I was like, damn it. But I can't remember if I told everybody on the Wednesday night show or if I told you after the show.
I think you told me after the show.
I think I did too. So I'm gonna just throw it out there for everybody. So there's some books that I would like to have to complete I have a lot of books about the JFK assassination. A lot of books. Most of them I was able to get, very cheaply at used bookstores. We got some great ones around where I live. And there was one that has eluded me all these years. I have it on PDF, for, the free version or whatever. And we've talked about it somewhat on this show before because it kind of adds to the mystique of the John T. Martin story and the Oswald fracas and yada, yada, yada. And that's a book called Reasonable Doubt by Henry Hurt that came out, and I believe it was 1986. And so I was like, you know what? I need a physical copy of this book because I would like to have it. I just want one. So I finally broke down and I ordered it off Amazon, and they had a bunch of good copies, but I always like, I don't want a beat up ass book. You know what I mean? Like I want something decent.
Yeah, they have like excellent, good, poor. Yeah, a couple.
And I know it's a 40-year-old book, but hey.
You want, yeah. And in many cases, Rob, excellent or good is like a couple more dollars than the poor or lower version. So it's worth it, depending on the supply, of course.
Yeah. So I found a very good copy, rated VG. And it was also rated collectible. Now, normally what that means is that the author has signed it to somebody, or it's a special first edition, numbered, limited edition, or whatever. But it didn't really say why it was collectible. So, it was just, a shot in the dark. So it was like $19. So I ordered it. And it came, and I was like, all right, what makes this thing collectible? So, it was very nice. It was in great condition. It had a plastic dust jacket over the normal dust jacket. So everything was really sweet looking, like kind of like the libraries do to their books.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a library book. It was a first edition, and it was signed by the author. And guess who it was signed to, folks? Holy wow.
You're going to love this one.
So I opened it up to the title page. This is to my good friend, John F. Kennedy Jr. Had a great time hanging out with you and Daryl. It was great to see you. Can't wait to see you again. This is for you. All the best, my friend. Much love, Henry Hurt. I was like, whoa. I just bought John F. Kennedy Jr.'s copy of Reasonable Doubt.
That is a one of one, as the kids call it, sir.
I was like, what? That's crazy. Dude never read it. I mean, the spine had never been cracked, right? But
JFK Jr. never read it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Very. Now I got John F. Kennedy Jr.'s copy of Henry Hurt's book, Reasonable Doubt, on my shelf. So that's awesome.
Bro, I mean, he was holding that book at some point when he was giving it over, right?
Right.
Even if he didn't read it, he held it.
Yeah, he had it at some point. Yeah.
Wow.
Craziness.
Crazy. I love the cool things you could find at places like that, for sure.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people have heard about we got a doubter in the house, Rick Riso. Mary Meyer had no association to the JFK case. That's not what we're saying.
Yeah, let's get a little into it here, and then make a logical conclusion here.
Let us cook, Rick. Let us cook. Yeah, we're slow boiling this for you.
Stay tuned, yes, sir.
Okay.
And everyone makes up their own mind. We just present the documents and some of the facts. So.
Yes, just hold tight. I mean, and like I said, we'll get into it, but the Mary Meyer thing, really paid no attention to it. Didn't read Mary's Mosaic.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard tangentially things over the years of people that have read the book. It was much bandied about, 15 years ago on the interwebs and yada yada yada. So I figured, it's been alleged that the CIA could have possibly been behind her murder, and same with Gary Underhill, allegedly. So we figured it'd be a good combination to maybe dive into some of these things. I've never talked about it here on the show before. Yeah. And maybe some people have never heard about it. So
yeah, no, for sure. And I kind of just know the basics, right? I know she was married to Cord Meyer. I know she had an affair with JFK. I know she had, as what is alleged as a suspicion.
All right, Joe, don't give away every goddamn thing.
Well, I'm saying I know the basics. I know the basics. So I'm looking forward to this as well.
God damn.
Come on, I was just
I
leading
feel
you into it,
so
bro.
sorry for Erica. You're gonna spoil y'all's wedding night.
You hear that?
Does he do this often, Erica?
Speak up. Sometimes,
See?
which is yes.
Yes. When Erica speak, yes.
Yes. But to your point, I really don't know much about her either. I just know like the very basics, you know. So
Right. Well, the
nor do I have my mind
intersection.
made up.
Huh?
Nor do I have my mind made up if she had anything to do with the JFK assassination or not.
Well, yeah, no, I'm not saying that she had anything to do with the JFK assassination. I'm saying that her death is suspicious and could possibly the CIA have been behind it for a reason. Okay.
Right. And I didn't mean to say like anything to do with the JFK assassination, like she was a plotter or something silly like that. I meant like maybe possible knowledge or whatever. Right. I just want to clarify.
All right. So there's a lot of things that are alleged about the relationship between Mary Pinchot Meyer and JFK. I mean, and again, it's alleged because we don't know for sure. Now, their relationship goes back a ways. And I'm trying to find when they moved into Hickory Hill. I think it was 1955. JFK and Jackie bought this house called Hickory Hill in McLean, Virginia.
Ooh.
Very close to where the CIA headquarters is, right down the road in McLean. Okay.
That's a nice house.
It is a nice house. Well, it turns out their neighbors were Cord Meyer and Mary Pinchot Meyer. Okay, so that's how they became friendly.
Yes.
Yeah, how they became friendly and get to know each other and all that stuff, became friends. Because, you know, Cord Meyer being with the CIA and JFK being in politics, they weren't around all the time. You know, they were gone a lot. So these ladies, these socialite ladies from, you know, high standing, would often hang out and gossip and do what women do, go shopping, shit like that, you know, and, you know, just hang out.
Yeah. And Mary was a big socialite from what I understand, right?
Yeah, she was a lot of things, actually.
Georgetown scene or whatever.
She wasn't what they call, Joe, your typical wife. Okay. A little bit about her. All right, so she's the daughter of a Northeastern elite. For so long had played a dominant role in American economy, culture, and government. She herself took up painting and joined the abstract expressionist Washington Color School as a student of Kenneth Nolan. Some of her paintings hang in museums today. Now, if you'll look closely back at the cover photo here, right under the word Conundrums is a circular painting. Do you see that, Joe?
I do.
Okay, well, it's not obvious that that's a painting, but that is one of her paintings, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah. And she was into this abstract, linear, weird shit type thing, right?
Uh-huh.
So her uncle was a fellow by the name of Gifford Pinchot, who was the best friend of President Theodore Roosevelt.
Okay.
He was also the first chief of the U.S. Forest Service and later governor of Pennsylvania. Her father, Amos Pinchot, was a lawyer and prominent progressive reformer in the 1920s. Her sister Antoinette, or commonly known as Tony for short, married a guy by the name of Ben Bradley, who rose to fame as the executive editor of the Washington Post and managed its coverage of the Pentagon Papers and the Watergate scandal. Mary herself attended the elite Brierley School in Vassar College, or Vassar, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Where many of her classmates became involved in the Washington elite through marriage to powerful elite players in politics.
Right.
Immediately after World War II, Mary married Cord Meyer, and together they built the United World Federalists. Later, Cord would be beckoned to join the CIA by none other than Allen Dulles himself, where he shed his liberal idealism and served in senior roles until 1977. One of Cord's bosses was James Jesus Angleton. Maybe you've heard of him. But not only was he Cord Meyer's boss, he was one of Cord Meyer's best friends. In fact, James Jesus Angleton was the godfather to two of the Meyer children.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So that tells you
not one.
How close they were.
Not one, two.
Two of them, yeah.
Yeah. As a godfather myself, Rob, that's significant.
Yes. Very serious role.
It is.
You know, so Angleton and his wife, Cord Meyer and his wife, right, were very good friends. And they all lived very close together in Georgetown. So I believe in 1956, I was going to say that this house, Hickory Hill here, JFK only lived here for a year. And then he sold it to his brother because dude had like 11 kids and needed a big ass house, right?
Yeah, that looks like it has 11 rooms.
Yeah. It was it's huge. It's ginormous.
Yeah.
And it actually stayed in the Kennedy family until 2009. It was put up for sale for $28.5 million, but eventually sold for $8.5 million.
Oh, wow. Well below asking there.
Went through an extensive renovation, and in 2013, after being renovated, sold again. So somebody flipped it. They flipped the McMansion.
Yeah. I'm sure they made a nice profit on it too.
Yeah. So when JFK and Jackie sold this, they moved to Georgetown, to I believe it was N Street or O Street in Georgetown. And that part of Georgetown I'm very familiar with is lined with these brick, townhouses.
Yep.
They're very big. They're very spacious. They're old. They're historic. And it was there that they lived very close. JFK and Jackie lived very close to Cord Meyer and Mary Meyer, who had moved from Langley, Virginia, to Georgetown. They literally lived right down the block from him. And I think Angleton and his wife lived like a street over.
Yeah.
So they were all living very close together.
Yeah. And I'm sure most of the other people that own those townhouses were State Department or this or that. I mean, it's all government people there.
Yeah. So the relationship between Mary Meyer and John F. Kennedy started way before he was even in politics or was president or anything like that. So actually, in 1937, Mary Pinchot was attending a school dance. Like I said, this is 1937. This is the year
37.
A year before Lee Harvey Oswald is born.
Yes.
Yeah.
Years before we got into World War II. Yes.
Yeah. an impertinent young man named John F. Kennedy repeatedly tried to cut in on her and her date and dance with her. It was impossible not to know who Kennedy was. His already famous father, multimillionaire businessman and Hollywood producer Joseph P. Kennedy, was named U.S. ambassador to the United Kingdom the following year. But Mary was offended by the young man's advances and apparently had no contact with him for more than a decade. Not until he emerged from World War II as a hero and was elected first to Congress and then to the Senate. But by that time, he was already married to Jacqueline Bouvier, and she was already married to Cord Meyer. But always on the prowl, Kennedy pursued her despite his marriage. Her resistance melted over time, and after he was elected president, she agreed to join him for dates in the White House. Not much time passed before the two allegedly fell in love. Contemporary accounts support this assertion and suggest that Kennedy would have divorced Jackie after serving his second term in office. Mary Pinchot Meyer, John F. Kennedy's lover, was to become his second wife, if you believe the hype. Mary's girlfriends included her sister, of course, Tony Bradley, a woman by the name of Katharine Graham, who later her husband's successor as publisher of the Washington Post following his suicide. Cicely Harriet D'Outremont Angleton, wife of James Jesus Angleton. Say that name 5 million times. Polly Wisner, who was married to one of the CIA's founding members, and Pamela Harriman, formerly Winston.
Not Frank Wisner?
Polly Wisner was Frank Wisner's husband.
Right. Okay.
Or wife, whatever you want to say.
Okay.
And Pamela Harriman, formerly Winston Churchill's daughter-in-law, then married to Averill Harriman, a prominent State Department official and one of the country's wealthiest men.
Yes. What is it? Brown something Harriman of that fame.
Yeah. He was in tight with the Dulles brothers.
Yes.
So Cord Meyer was in World War II, stationed in Hawaii, I believe. And he took some shrapnel to the face, and it also caused him to lose an eyeball. And so his face was scarred up, and he was given a glass eye that looked reasonably passable, as a substitute, I guess. And somehow met Mary Meyer, not Mary Mormon. Mary Meyer in New York as he was recovering. I think she was doing some kind of like volunteer work at a care center for veterans, or something. And they met each other. They fell in love, and they eventually moved down here to go into whatever. And then he was approached through mutual friends by Alan Dulles to join the CIA, and that's what happened. The men who frequented the Georgetown parties, where gossip flowed as freely as liquor, included her then ex-husband Cord Meyer, Cord's mentor, boss, and friend James Jesus Angleton, Frank Wisner, Joe, a former CIA director close to Angleton, Phil Graham, a publisher and later co-owner of the Washington Post, Ben Bradley, and even occasionally John F. Kennedy.
Yes, the elite circles and the cocktail parties of the DC elite.
Yes. Once Mary's intense affair with Jack Kennedy was underway, she interacted frequently with Kenny O'Donnell, one of the president's appointments secretary and procurer. She had little or no contact with others in the White House since O'Donnell whisked her in and out in secrecy. Unlike so many other women during the 3 short years of the administration, Mary Meyer was John F. Kennedy's lover in reality and not a one-night fling. Here's where it gets crazy.
Wait, what do you mean in reality, but not a one-time fling?
No, it was in reality. She was really his lover, not just a one-night fling.
Okay, good. Thank you.
There was a book written called The Lost Diary of M. Now, this is not, it's basically a fictional account of what her diary possibly could have said. So this is not a historically accurate diary portrayal. But now the reason she had a falling out with Cord Meyer, I mean, their marriage wasn't the greatest anyway. And I believe it was in 1954 or it was 53. Somebody hit their dog and killed it. And then the next year, somebody hit their son in the road and killed him.
Oh, I heard about this. This rings a bell.
Yeah.
That was Cord Meyer's son?
Yeah.
Wow. I did read about this.
After that, their marriage kind of fell apart and they went their separate ways.
Right. As a death of a kid does sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a death, but
they remained somewhat friendly, you know, as friendly as can be, but they still shared the same circle of friends and you know, confidants, since, you know, people's wives were still hanging out together, the guys hung out together, the women hang out together. They just weren't together anymore. Now there's an allegations, and I saw somebody bring it up here before. Timothy Leary, the godfather of LSD, right? He wrote in his book.
Yes, that was Mr. James Smith who said, "Don't say anything, Joe, about him." I did not.
I'm just throwing it out there because he wrote it in his book. Okay. He said that Mary Meyer came to him and wanted his best shit. Okay. Told him she was going to dose the president and show him everything that was right and wrong with the world. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So he did. He gave her his best shit. And apparently, I mean, it started with her. She was dropping acid with Allen Ginsberg when she went out to California, and then enlisted Timothy Leary and turning on her girlfriends in Georgetown. Mary regards LSD as the means by which she and her friends will convert the powerful men of the administration to the cause of world peace.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this is what they're kind of blaming JFK's turn to peace.
Mm-hmm.
It's because he started tripping on acid and, you know, his mind expanding to these, you know, these otherworldly concepts. And
yeah, I mean, we do know JFK definitely liked his controlled substances, even if they were given to him by a doctor. But Mary Pinchot Meyer, I think you mentioned in your earlier description of her, was really progressive, anti-war. So that makes sense to me that she could.
Yeah, very left wing, very liberal, very anti-war. You know, peace, love, and happiness before hippies were cool. You know what I mean? Like that's what
she's ahead of the game. She's ahead of the game there.
She was ahead of the game.
Yeah.
She manages to persuade several of the women she knows not only to take LSD themselves, but to administer it to their husbands. Could you imagine James Jesus Angleton tripping?
Like he needed any help.
Right.
Stumbling around all day.
I came up with this intricate mole hunt.
Yeah.
Easy.
You know what? Maybe she did. Maybe she was successful in giving it to him. He was wrong about a lot of things.
She does eventually succeed in enticing the president to experience the drug, and shortly thereafter, Kennedy delivers a ringing plea for world peace in a widely cited commencement address at American University on June the 10th, 1963, that shocked the Pentagon and the State Department to their core. Mary, via Paul Wolfe, who's the guy that wrote this Lost Diary of M, imagines a direct connection between the LSD and the call for peace. Mary regards that speech, and even more tellingly, his decision not to authorize support for the invading force of the Bay of Pigs, as the reasons for his assassination. It becomes clear in the pages of her diary that the events of November 22nd, 1963 were the doing of the CIA. Peter Janney's book makes the same case, and in my view, he does so convincingly. So whatever became of this diary, Joe?
I've heard rumors.
But before we get there, let me just show everybody a little bit of the crime scene. This is an actual photo of the crime scene. This is down on the towpath beside the canal in Georgetown.
She was shot while jogging or something, right?
No, she was taking a walk.
Taking a walk. Okay.
She had just got done painting a painting at her townhouse, right?
All right.
She left the fan blowing on it for the paint to dry. She put on 3 layers of clothes and went out to take a walk because it was a beautiful day. And ends up being shot at very close range in broad daylight.
Yeah, execution
in
style.
Georgetown.
Yeah. I think one to the back and one to the back of the head or something. That's what I read. But
yeah, I'm not 100% sure. But
doesn't seem random. I think is my point.
Yeah. They blame this guy on the left there.
Under 339.
Yeah. For her death. But there was a lot of missing evidence, shall we say. I don't think they ever recovered the gun. This guy was just somewhere close by and they just pinned it on him.
Where have you seen that?
Poor bastard.
Shoot. And she doesn't seem like someone that would be nefarious enough to get shot walking execution style, unless maybe one of these powerful people found out she was the source of them getting dosed out, or maybe another reason. But she seems like she was very peaceful, is my point. So why would someone either randomly
what she knew?
What did she know?
Or what she may have been saying. So let me go back to when they first met each other. Remember, I told you they met at a dance and Kennedy kept trying to cut in. Well, the guy he was trying to cut in on at the time was a guy by the name of William Atwood, who would later figure into the secret negotiations with the Castro regime, which directly preceded Kennedy's murder. JFK was a college man, 3 years her senior. There's no indication that things went beyond a dance that night, but I'm willing to bet there was for both of them an instantaneous feeling of complicity. Complicity is what sparks romance, and complicity is the only thing that could have allowed a president to drop acid with Mary Pinchot in the White House. Now, of course, dropping acid is not the only thing that they supposedly did. I believe they also like to puff on the ganja, as they say. Let's see.
Can't blame them for that.
Yeah.
JFK had a lot of back pain. So
Cord Meyer was appointed by Angleton to manage the CIA disinformation campaign known as Operation Mockingbird. Maybe you've heard of it. This is where they control various aspects of the media, including print, television, radio, things like that. And of course, we all know how long that went on and probably is still going on to this day.
I can almost guarantee it. And there's an interesting thread on the Ed forum that says, "Is Mockingbird still active today?"
You think?
Yes, it has just morphed into other spaces.
From most accounts, Jack courted Mary for a while before she finally assented to having the White House limo pick her up for a tryst. The fact is, she did assent, and this led to a 2-year romance that looks an awful lot like love, Joe. In fact, James Angleton, the same master of black ops who has seduced away her husband, insisted among JFK's many flings, this was the one that mattered. He ought to have known he was in love with her too. Mary Pinchot was the sort of woman who gave you no choice. After her own murder in October of 64, just short of 1 year later than the president's, it was Angleton who wound up with her secret diary in his gnarled, nicotine-stained hands, allegedly. Allegedly. So she is killed on the towpath that runs beside the Chesapeake and Ohio Canal, one shot point blank to the head, one to the heart, and was found on the ground in the fetal position. The D.C. cop who gently turned her body over said he'd never seen a more beautiful corpse, Joe. The attendees at her memorial service were a who's who of spooks and characters who have since been cast in all manner of conspiracy theories, but the most intriguing and provocative question is not who executed her, but what passed between her and Jack in the private hours of sex and recovery they spent at the White House. Many of those hours, by her account, under the influence of psychoactive drugs like marijuana and LSD. Likewise, I'm less interested in who may have plotted together in their, or what the two of them may have plotted together in their blissfully altered state and how it may have altered the shape of history. Timothy Leary is, of course, the primary source for the Kennedy LSD stories, an admittedly unreliable narrator, of course. Once two people are dead, there's really nobody left to refute. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. For sure.
So who knows if it's true? But Leary says that Mary came to him in his office at Harvard, where he was a respected academic doing serious research on the brain chemistry of psychedelics, but not yet notorious. She asked him to train her how to guide an acid trip and said that she had entree to a world of powerful men. Men with their finger on the nuclear trigger who, if properly influenced, might come to see a better way to chart the future course of the ship of state. She asked him for his best stuff. I'd like to think of it as grade A Owsley acid, the same stuff that Grace Slick and Aldous Huxley were doing. She returned to Washington like winged Mercury and delivered the dose to the president, after which, in her telling, they made love while tripping.
Not the easiest thing to do.
No.
I would not know, but not the easiest thing to do.
He wondered aloud, what if the Russians did something right now and I am fucked up? She wrote him a fat joint, and they talked about how to seek a newer world, one in which the heroes were peacemakers, and manliness was a quality associated as much with restraint as military prowess. In the 60s, hip women were beginning to know that the bigger the gun, the humbler the personal equipment. And slowly but surely, as the story goes, she got to him. Not that the inclination wasn't already there. He was a deeply intelligent man, but hip enough to know or to be aware of Jack Kerouac and Mingus and Monk, and cosmopolitan enough to see beyond narrow nationalism. But she brought these qualities out. The acid brought them out, and the historical record unfolds as if in synchronization with their love affair. The peace overtures to Castro and Khrushchev, the nuclear test ban treaty, the American University speech, the perhaps fateful decision to withdraw 16,000 troops from Vietnam. I'm not suggesting, as some authors have, that Mary and her magic seeds were the sole or even principal influence on Jack's evolution. But take her out of the picture, and history may have been different than it was. She was with him on the night of the day the Diem brothers were killed and dismembered in Saigon by a CIA operation he'd given tacit approval to and later regretted. The night it may have come to him that he did not have control of the chaotic forces within his own government, and that he and his own brother Bobby might, like the Diems, end up in a trunk. He called for her. What was her advice? I imagine Mary cradling his head in her hands and whispering something like that quote, often attributed to Gandhi, about, quote, being the change we wish to see in the world. Then kissing his mouth to quiet his fretting and slowly taking him down to that place where peace is made between a man and a woman, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
In the life of John F. Kennedy, it may have been the only real peace he ever felt. She changed his heart, and he offered the heart to the forces arrayed against him. What happened then is no really great surprise. In all such cases, the kings must die. Meyer never got over his ex-wife. That tough CIA operative with the glass eye and war-scarred face wept publicly throughout her memorial service. Hardened as he was by then, indentured to the company as surely as a mafia lieutenant into his capo, she must have resented him for the man he had become. Many years later, caught in a fleeting moment of transparency and maybe remorse, he was asked who he thought had married his late wife, Mary Meyer. And he said, quote, Joe, the same son of a bitches who killed Kennedy. And he was in a position to know. As far as the record goes, he never spoke on the subject again.
So Cord is saying the same people that killed Kennedy killed his wife?
Yeah.
Okay.
The same sons of bitches.
Yes. Got it.
Them sons of bitches.
Yeah. Do you have, I was going to bring up really quickly, because James had a good comment here. Mary was a beautiful lady, highly intelligent, interesting woman. And I just want to show a picture real quick, Rob. This is her.
Yes.
She really beautiful woman, obviously. Would have, of course, caught JFK's eye. And if she had a husband with one eye who was maybe not sharing her ideological views on anti-war, being Cord Meyer, the CIA, I could see a friendship developing between her. You know, it makes sense to me, right?
Yeah. Now, I have a firsthand account here from somebody who was there that day when they found her body.
Okay.
And who knew her, actually. So this is, like I said, a firsthand account. And I'm trying to find out who wrote this. I think his name is Lance Morrow. But it says, on a perfect day in October in 1964, Mary Pinchot Meyer, mistress of John Kennedy, friend of Jackie Kennedy, and ex-wife of a top CIA man, Cord Meyer, was murdered in the rarefied Washington precinct of Georgetown. It was noon. I was a cub reporter on the Washington Star. In the classically scruffy press room at police headquarters, I heard the radio dispatcher direct cruisers 25 and 26, which I recognized immediately as homicide squad cars, to get down to the C&O Canal. I alerted the city desk and drove to Georgetown, ran to the wall overlooking the canal, and saw a body curled up in a ball on the towpath. Two men who had been changing a tire nearby told me they had heard a shot, a cry for help, a second shot, and they had called police. There were no cops with the body yet, but in the distance between the Potomac and the canal, I saw the lines of the police dragnet closing in along the towpath from west and east. Because I'd played there as a young boy, I knew there was a tunnel under the canal a few hundred yards west of where the body lay. I knew the killer was still at large and might have also known about it, but the tunnel would be the quickest way for me to get to the other side of the canal to where the body was. So I pushed aside the vines at the tunnel entrance and hurried through, heart pounding, and burst into sunshine on the other side. I approached the body of Mary Pinchot Meyer and stood over it weirdly and awkwardly, alone, as the police were still advancing from either direction. She lay on her side as if sleeping. She was dressed in a light blue, fluffy Angora sweater, pedal pushers, and sneakers. She was an artist and had a studio nearby, and she had gone out for her usual lunchtime walk. I saw her neat and almost bloodless bullet hole in her head. She looked entirely peaceful, vaguely patrician. She had an air of Georgetown. I stood there with her until the police came up. I held a reporter's notebook, and the cops from the homicide squad knew me, and they told me to move away. The police found a man in the woods down by the river. His name was Ray Crump Jr., and he was black. His clothes were wet. He had a cut on his hand. He gave the police a couple of stories. He said he'd been fishing and had dropped his fishing pole and gone into the river to retrieve it. He said he had been drinking beer and went to sleep and fell in. The two men who had heard the shots told police that they had seen Crump standing over the body, so he was booked for homicide. The police found his jacket and cap in the river. His fishing rod was in a closet where he lived on the other side of the city. The murder weapon was never found. It may still be at the bottom of the river. Crump eventually was acquitted, though, for lack of evidence.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I told you they arrested this guy, but they didn't have any evidence on him. I mean,
Right.
none. And he was acquitted.
Okay. In the initial trial, or not in like
Yeah.
an appeal or anything? Okay.
No, initial trial.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I wonder who those guys were who were changing that tire that ID'd him, right? Because you think you have an eyeball witness, right? That's pretty, and a black man in the 60s.
Yeah, but there's a wall there, and they're down on the ground changing a tire.
Mhm.
You know, so maybe the black guy heard a shot and went over to look and see the white lady. You know, I don't know.
No, I'm saying I agree. I'm saying it's very surprising because you would expect 99% of those cases he's done. He's gone for life, but yet he's acquitted. So that's an anomaly. It's suspicious. Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, he had a very good white lawyer. Apparently, I don't know. But when Mary Meyer died, no one knew about her affair with John Kennedy except his closest confidant, Kenny O'Donnell, and whoever it was that she had told, you know, maybe some of her closest confidants.
Right.
Or nobody knew that her ex-husband job managed in the CIA's clandestine services. In the newspapers, Cord Meyer was identified as an author with a very vague government job. Nobody really knew he worked for the CIA. Yeah, it was Ben Bradley who identified the body at the morgue. Then other news intervened. There was a presidential election coming up. Johnson, who had recently signed the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution versus Goldwater, the warmonger, according to the 1964 narrative, Khrushchev was deposed. China exploded its first nuclear bomb, and the Warren Report had just come out a month prior. But over the years, sensational fragments of the story, JFK, CIA, turned up inevitably. Conspiracy theories emerged. Who killed Mary really? Was Ray Crump set up? By whom? Why? You know, there's a lot of different theories.
Right.
And there's a lot of different stories. Even about the diary, which she, you know, supposedly kept. So you could throw this into a world of James Elroy, The Grassy Knoll, Jim Garrison, The Mafia, Judith Exner, Fair Play for Cuba, Mongoose, and so on. Solution 2 inserted Mary Meyer by accident into an entirely different story, the primal drama of race in America. The Oliver Stone solution regards Ray Crump as a misdirection. The Richard Wright solution regards the conspiracy as misdirection. The conspiracy theory smacks of the Oedipal paranoid fantasies of hidden plots by sinister super elders, and the other doesn't cover the possibilities or particularities of this act. At the same time, given what the two witnesses said, and given Crump's alcoholism and mental instability and criminal record before and after the murder, I believe the jury erred in acquitting him. In retrospect, the case suggests other movies, one from Mary Meyer's youth, like The Intricate Murder Puzzle Laura, or else that greatest generation favorite Casablanca, with its throbbing moral choices, worked out over endless cigarettes and sacramental booze. I grew up watching my mother and a number of women of her generation, which included Mary Meyer, born 2 years before my mother, struggling in different ways with the dilemmas of marriage and children and power and alcohol and ambition in a city that was politically charged, noisy with controversy, and at the same time stunningly dull. There was hardly a decent restaurant in town and not much theater beyond the pedestrian National Theater down by the Treasury Department. The National offered a visiting Bulgarian dance troupes, dancing dogs, perhaps, and an occasional Broadway sideshow. Sunday afternoon seemed to go on for months. Washington was hermetically segregated, ideologically over-triumphant, militarily over-powerful, yet also over-anxious, over-boozed, overstretched, and oversexed. You saw those traits in Georgetown, which seemed to house half the hierarchy of the State Department, the CIA, and the journalistic establishment,
Yeah.
many of whom gathered for argumentative high policy dinner parties on Sunday nights. It's the Sunday night drunk, as one regular called it. Men from Wild Bill Donovan's old OSS and Allen Dulles' CIA and other Cold Warriors out of Groton and Yale and Princeton would drink too much, shout, and might even, towards 1 or 2 in the morning, go for one another's throats or wives. They would send a note of apology the next day. The expensively educated had styles of cluelessness and overcompensating machismo that would come to grief at the Bay of Pigs. So, after her divorce, she had moved to Georgetown, became an artist, and she was also a student of the painter Kenneth Nolan, and probably sexed him up too. Experimented with drugs, in part, it seems, under the tutelage of Timothy Leary, who in a book many years later claimed that Mary wanted to turn Camelot into a peace and love acid trip. Mary climbed the back stairs of the White House to have her affair. Then she died on the towpath. A woman interrupted. But unhappy irony, the questioning, independent woman will be known after death not as an artist, but simply as one of Kennedy's girlfriends. Washington was a small town. The cast of characters in Mary's cast of characters overlap sometimes. I played touch football on Saturday mornings at the playground field at 34th and Q Streets near Mary's house with Bobby Kennedy and his cronies, with Byron, Wizard White, and others. JFK sometimes came to watch, leaning on crutches. So, all these people are just co-mingling, intermingling with each other. They're all mixed up with each other.
Yeah. 100%.
But back to the diary.
Okay, can I say something really quick, Rob?
Yeah.
Just because we have the best chat in the world. When you said a white lawyer was probably representing Crump,
yeah.
Within 4 seconds, James Smith says black lawyer, actually. And Paula, I hope I'm not doxing you here, I know, is a former district attorney or ADA, assistant district attorney. So the acquitted guy was represented by one of the first black female criminal attorneys. So very interesting.
Yes, thank you.
Learn something new. I have some more things highlighted, but I'll get into it after. Yeah, isn't that a great example of how our chat just is probably the smartest chat in the world?
I would concur with that.
Yeah. Thank you, James and Paula.
So yeah, that's what we know about that. So back to the damn diary, because that's what all the hullabaloos are about, right?
Right.
Now I have here in my hot little hand an FBI memorandum.
Okay.
From October 14th, 1964, secret all over it, to Mr. Belmont of the FBI from Mr. W.C. Sullivan of the FBI. Subject, John McCone, Director of Central Intelligence Agency. Excuse me. Reference is made to Mr. McCone's meeting with, I don't know who, on October 13th, 64.
Has to be an FBI guy, right? If it's an FBI document.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Pursuant to instructions, the liaison agent, Richard Helms, Deputy Director of Plans, had inquired if a meeting be held with Helms and James Angleton. On October 14th, Helms agreed to meet with me and Supervisor Papich on 10/14/64, and the meeting would be held at 10 a.m. on October 15th. Helms explained that he and Angleton have been very much involved with matters pursuant to the death and funeral of Mrs. Mary Pinchot Meyer. She is the woman who was murdered on the canal towpath near Georgetown, and is also the former wife of Cord Meyer, a CIA high official. Action, if approved, I and Papich will meet with Helms on October 15th, 1964.
Yeah. I think her death was early October or sometime a few days before that.
So, I mean, this went up to like, Belmont and Sullivan were like 3 and 4, underneath of Clyde Tolson,
Mhm.
So the FBI was questioning it, looking into it, were aware of it, and were aware of who she was and who her husband was and all of that jazz.
Probably the affair, allegedly, too. You would
Probably.
think they knew about that.
So from Newsweek, March 1st, 1976, we have a story. It's called Kennedy's, and it's called More Pillow Talk. And it's about Mary Meyer and her story. And when it gets down to the part about the murder, Mary Meyer went for a walk, as she often did, on the towpath, blah, blah, blah. A witness on a bridge saw her struggling with a black man. By the time he reached the scene, she was dead with 2 bullet wounds. A suspect was tried and acquitted. A few days after her death, according to Jay Gorley, a freelance writer who helped report the Inquirer story, a group of Mary's friends, including Tony Bradley, Angleton and his wife, and Cord Meyer, all went to her home to try to find her telltale diary. Angleton had come equipped with drills and white gloves from the CIA, and they tapped on walls, drilled in floors, poked around in the furnace, dug in the garden, but to no avail. But Tony Bradley found it later and gave it to Angleton, who reportedly destroyed it. And this account comes from a guy by the name of James McC. Truitt, who was the vice president of the Washington Post from 1962 to 64, and later in Newsweek bureau chief in Tokyo. He and his wife were very close friends with Mrs. Myers. She told them he reported that Kennedy had asked her to stay behind after a White House party in December of 61, and she had refused. But a month later, the president phoned her again and invited her over for a tete-a-tete. And she resisted, he pressed, and she finally agreed. Shortly afterward, a White House limousine driven by a Secret Service agent picked her up and delivered her to the South Portico. This began, said Truitt, a series of brief encounters, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week, between Meyer and JFK that lasted nearly up to the assassination, always while Jackie Kennedy was away. So there you have one account, okay, that they were all together looking for this diary because they knew something explosive could possibly be in it. Supposedly they didn't find it, and supposedly Tony Bradley found it later and turned it over to Angleton, who supposedly burned it. Right? That's one story.
Right.
But there's others.
I'm sure there are.
And let me find it now.
Tony Bradley was the woman friend of hers, right?
Was her sister.
Or her sister. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So, again, this is a different telling of her death. On October 12, 1964, Mary Pinchot Meyer was shot dead as she walked along the Chesapeake and Ohio towpath. Henry Wiggins, a car mechanic, was working on a vehicle on Canal Road when he heard a woman shout out, "Someone help me! Someone help me!" He then heard 2 gunshots. Then Wiggins ran to the edge of a wall that overlooked the towpath. He later told police he saw, quote, a black man in a light jacket, dark slacks, and a dark cap standing over the body of a white woman. Mary appeared to be killed by a professional hitman. The first bullet was fired at the back of the head, but she did not die straight away, so a second shot was fired into the heart. The evidence suggested in both cases the gun was virtually touching Mary's body when it was fired, and the FBI expert testified the dark halos on the skin around both entry wounds suggested they had been fired at close range, possibly point blank.
Right.
Now, here's where Peter Janney comes into the picture, the guy who wrote the book Mary's Mosaic. Ben Bradley points out that the first he heard of the death of Mary Meyer was when he received a phone call from Wister Janney, a friend of his who worked for the CIA. This Wister Janney is Peter Janney's father. My friend Wister Janney called to ask if I had been listening to the radio. It was just after lunch, and of course I had not. Next, he asked if I knew where Mary was, and of course I didn't. Someone had been murdered on the towpath, he said, and from the radio description, it sounded a lot like Mary. I raced home. Tony was coping by worrying about children, hers and Mary's, and about her mother, who was 71 years old and living alone in New York. We asked Ann Chamberlain, Mary's college roommate, to go to New York and bring Ruth to us, their mother. When Ann was well on her way, I was delegated to break the news to Ruth on the telephone. I can't remember what that conversation. I was so scared for her, my family, and for what was happening in our world. Next, the police told us someone would have to identify Mary's body in the morgue, and since Mary and her husband, Cord Meyer, were separated, I drew that straw too. That's according to Ben Bradley. So to get to the Truett thing, right? So that night, Antoinette Pinchot Bradley, Tony Bradley, received a telephone call from Mary's best friend, Ann Truett, who was an artist then living in Tokyo. She told her that it was, quote, a matter of some urgency that she found Mary's diary before the police got to it, and her private life became a matter of public record. Mary had apparently told Anne that, quote, if anything ever happens to me, you must take possession of my private diary. Ben Bradley explains in his book called The Good Life in 1995 that, quote, we didn't start looking until the next morning when Tony and I walked around the corner a few blocks to Mary's house. It was locked as we expected, but when we got inside, we found our buddy Jim Angleton, and to our complete surprise, he told us he too was looking for Mary's diary. James Jesus Angleton later claimed that he had also received a phone call from Ann Truett. His wife, Cicely Dautremont Angleton, confirmed this in an interview given to Nina Burley. However, an article by Ron Rosenbaum and Philippe Noble in the New Times on July 9th, 1976, gives a different version of events, with the Angletons arriving at Mary's house that evening to attend a poetry reading, and that at this stage they did not know she was dead, allegedly. Cicely Angleton called her husband at work to ask him to check on a radio report she had heard that a woman had been shot on the old Chesapeake and Ohio towpath in Georgetown. Walking along that towpath, which ran near her home, was Mary Meyer's favorite exercise, and Cicely, knowing her routine, was worried. Angleton dismissed his wife's worry, pointing out that there was no reason to suppose that the dead woman was Mary. Many people walked along that towpath, and when the Angletons arrived at Meyer's house that evening, she was not home. A phone call to her answering service proved that Cicely's anxiety had not been misplaced, and their friend had been murdered that afternoon. The bullet in her chest severed the aorta, which carries blood to the heart, and came out of her chest on the other side. The evidence suggests in both cases the gun was virtually touching Mary's body when it was fired. Point blank, blah, 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 blah. Now, there's, of course, stories about this diary that she had written in there. Some things about, her tryst with Kennedy, her taking LSD with Kennedy. Apparently, Angleton was given a box. The contents of the box were given to Angleton, who claimed to have burned the diary without reading it. Angleton later admitted that Mary recorded in her diary that she had taken LSD with Kennedy before they made love. Which doesn't make sense if he says they didn't read it. But okay. Of course you're going to read it. Jesus. So then this is what Ben Bradley has to say about things. His surprising confession was that he had lied during the trial of Raymond Crump, the man accused of killing Mary Pinchot Meyer. Bradley admitted in the book that he had searched for Meyer's diary with Angleton. He says, quote, we, Bradley and his wife, asked him, Angleton, how he'd gotten into the house. And he kind of looked away and shuffled his feet. Later, we learned that one of Jim's nicknames inside the agency was the locksmith, and that he was known as a man who could pick his way into any house in town. We felt his presence there was odd, to say the least, but took him at his word, and with him we searched Mary's house thoroughly without success. We found no diary. Later that day, we realized that we hadn't looked for the diary in Mary's studio, which was directly across a dead-end driveway from the garden behind our house. We had no key, but I got a few tools to remove the simple padlock, and we walked towards the studio only to run into Angleton again, this time actually in the process of picking the padlock on the studio. He would have been red-faced if his face could have gotten red, and he almost left without saying a word, but I unscrewed the hinge and we entered the studio. However, according to Ron Rosenbaum, where he interviewed Angleton, he described Bradley as a liar and denied he'd ever been in Mary's studio. Bradley claims that his wife actually found the diary in a later search. Much has been written about this diary, most of it wrong, since its existence was first reported. Tony took it to our house, and we read it later that night. It was small, only about 6 inches by 8 inches, with 50 or 60 pages, most of them filled with paint swatches and descriptions of how the colors were created and what they were created for. On a few pages, maybe 10 in all, the same handwriting but different pen phrases described a love affair, and after reading only a few phrases, it was clear that the lover had been the President of the United States, though his name was never mentioned. To say we were stunned doesn't begin to describe our reactions. Tony especially felt betrayed, both by Kennedy and by her sister Mary. It has been claimed that the Bradleys also found love letters sent by Kennedy to Meyer, and these were destroyed. The following day, her sister Antoinette Pinchot Bradley gave the diary to Angleton and told him to destroy it. But it turned out that Angleton did not destroy the document for whatever perverse or perverted reasons. We didn't learn this until some years later when Tony asked him point blank how he had destroyed it. When he admitted that he hadn't destroyed it, she demanded that he give it back, and when he did, she burned it with a friend as a witness. None of us has any idea what Angleton did with the diary while it was in his possession, nor why he failed to follow Mary and Tony's instructions.
I'm sorry, sir. Who burned the diary again? I just want to double take that. After Angleton got it, his wife burned it with someone else, or what was it? I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
No, her sister asked Angleton how he destroyed the diary, and he told her, I didn't actually destroy the diary. So then at that point, she asked for it back, but this is years later.
I see. Thank you.
So he gave it back to her, and then she allegedly destroyed it.
Right. Okay.
But nobody knows what he did with it while he had it.
I see. Thank you for clearing that up.
After the publication of the book The Good Life, Cicely Dautremont Angleton, and this is in 95, this is like 20 years after Angleton's death, but his wife's still alive, and Ann Truitt wrote a letter to the New York Times Book Review to correct what, in our opinion, is an error in Bradley's autobiography. This error occurs in Mr. Bradley's account of the discovery and disposition of Mary Pinchot Meyer's personal diary. The fact is that Mary Meyer asked Ann Truitt to make sure that in the event of anything happening to her, while Anne was in Japan, James Angleton take this diary into his safekeeping. When she learned that Mary had been killed, Ann Truitt telephoned person to person from Tokyo for James Angleton. She found him at Mr. Bradley's house, where Angleton and his wife Cicely had been asked to come following the murder. In the phone call relaying Mary Meyer's specific instructions, Ann Truitt told Angleton for the first time that there was a diary. And in accordance with Meyer's explicit request, Ann Truitt asked Angleton personally to search for and take charge of the diary. This is, of course, 20 years. This is 95. This is 20 years after Angleton's even dead.
Mm-hmm.
So In 2011, the story continues. The Washington Post publishes a letter from Angleton's children. They also question the account provided by Ben Bradley. They say Ann Truitt, a friend of Tony Bradley and Bradley's sister Mary Meyer, were abroad when Meyer was killed in the district. Truitt called Bradley and said that Meyer had asked her to request that Angleton retrieve and burn certain pages of her diary if anything happened to her. James and Cicely Angleton were with Ben and Tony Bradley at the Bradley's house when Tony Bradley received the call. Cicely, our mother, told her daughter Guru Sankat Khalsa, "We all went to Mary's house together. She said there was no break-in because the Bradleys had a key. The diary is not found at that time, and later Tony Bradley found it and gave it to Angleton. He burned the pages that Meyer had asked to be burned and put the rest in his safe. Years later, he gave the rest of the diary back to Bradley at her request, and she burned the rest of it." So, who in the hell knows, bro?
I don't know.
And then at the end, there's something titled Cord Meyer's Confession.
Okay.
A guy by the name of C. David Heyman began writing a book that was eventually published as Georgetown Ladies Social Club in 2004. The book concerned the group of women that had been part of the group that existed in the 50s and 60s in Georgetown. This included Mary Pinchot Meyer, and Heyman became interested in her death, and in February 2001, he requested an interview with Cord Meyer, who at this time was himself dying of lymphoma. Heyman asked Meyer if he had told the truth in his book, Facing Reality, From World Federalism to the CIA in 1980. He says, quote, "I was satisfied by the conclusions of the police investigation that Mary had been the victim of a sexually motivated assault by a single individual and that she had been killed in her struggle to escape." Meyer replied, "My father died of a heart attack the same year Mary was killed." He whispered, "It was a bad time." And what could he say about Mary Meyer, who had committed such a heinous crime? And that's when he said, "The same sons of bitches that killed John F. Kennedy," he hissed. But now some people suppose that possibly, Cord Meyer was still in love with Mary Meyer. He found out about the tryst with JFK, got immensely pissed off, and rigged up her death.
Right. And if you take it in the context of, listen, they were lovers, something happened, they got divorced, this dude has one eye, and now this smoke show of your ex-wife is dating, the most handsome, desirable guy in the world. You could see some jealousy occurring there, especially if you're high up as Cord was in the CIA.
And it's also thrown out there that James Angleton was also in love with Mary Meyer.
Maybe from afar, right? And his drunken...
maybe. But how creepy dudes are, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
He's into enough with them to be named the godfather of their children.
True.
And supposedly she said explicitly that if anything happens to her, to get the diary to Angleton.
Do you think Angleton would be there personally picking locks?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if he was picking locks. I'm sure he had a key to her place.
Okay.
That's my guess.
Mm-hmm.
Even if she didn't give him one, he probably had a key to her place, if you know what I'm saying. He'd probably go in there and sniff her panties when she wasn't there or something and sneak back out.
Yeah. In case I need to take care of the god kids.
Yeah. But anyway, that's the story of Mary Pinchot Meyer. We're not saying she's involved in the death of JFK directly. Indirectly, who knows? Maybe Jackie found out about this affair and she got pissed because they were friends.
Mm-hmm.
And then, maybe Jackie orchestrated this. Who knows?
I'm going to push back a little bit on that because I think
I'm just throwing the theories that are out there that, So.
Yeah, but Jackie was well aware of Jack's infidelities, right? I'm not sure, even if it is a former friend, that she would go to that length. But again,
current friend,
you never know.
That's the thing. That's the kicker.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Current friend. Normally that shit is off limits. If you have friend groups, where you have husband and wife friend groups.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to bang some whore that nobody knows that lives in halfway across the country every once in a while.
Yeah.
But when it's one of your best friends and it's all part of your little friend group, that could fuck things up, man.
That's a no-no. That's a no-no.
That's what we call shitting where you eat, folks.
Yes.
You don't do that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And you have to think, it's October. I think she died in October, 64. It's pretty close to when the Warren Commission came out, within a month or two in either direction.
Yeah.
It could be possible that they didn't want something to get out. I don't know. It just could have been Cord Meyer's jealousy too, and had nothing to do with JFK.
Or maybe Angleton thought that Cord Meyer might have told her something.
Yeah.
I mean, loose lips sink ships, Joe. I mean, there's so many suspects, so many ways this could go.
Yeah.
Such intrigue and mystery, and the company's balls deep in this thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And Angleton's drunk all the time. This woman's tripping all the time, giving acid to everyone in Georgetown. I mean, you never know. It doesn't seem to me that it would be so random, especially the fact that you said that this was during her normal lunchtime walk. It seemed to be part of a routine.
Right.
So,
it would be something that people knew that she did.
Yes.
Which is a big red flag.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
I don't either, but that's why we leave it up to you. You smart ladies and gentlemen in the chat to make up your own minds.
All right, so before we kick it over to Joe and Gary Underhill, let's take a little break and sell some hot sauce. Joe, what do you say?
I love it. Let's do it.
All right, we'll be right back after this word from our sponsor.
Big Bad Bob here with you for Silk City Hot Sauces. Why Silk City? Because this hot sauce comes to you directly from Patterson, New Jersey, also known as Silk City. These hot sauces are 100% natural, gluten-free, vegan, contain no chemicals, fillers, dyes, or junk. Everything is packed into recyclable glass containers because glass doesn't leach weird flavors into the product. All other hot sauces are sourced in small batches from locally bought fresh peppers. It's all about the pepper, people. Telling you. Your boy, Big Bad Bob, loves his food like he loves his women. Hot and spicy, but not so hot you can't eat them. So, if you love yourself some sauce and you're tired of trying to transform your bland meat into something edible, with the tip of a jar, you will transform your life forever. Head over to silkcityhotsauce.com, place an order, and upon checkout, enter the code GUNMAN, that's GUNMAN, for 20% off of your entire order. You won't regret it. Thank me later. Peace.
Hell yeah.
Love it.
You can find the link to order you some Silk City hot sauce in the description of this very show. Also down there, you can find a link to become a channel member if you would like. You can be a covert operator or a super spy to qualify to get an extra 4 shows a month, folks. We do them on Wednesday nights. Full shows. Ain't no bullshit. Just ask people in the chat. Ask the coverts and the super spies Is Wednesday legit? Wednesday's legit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now we do the Wednesday show free for everybody. Well, not everybody, but for the spooks and higher, the last Wednesday of the month, just so you get a little taste of what you may be missing. So definitely check that out. Once you become a channel member, you have access to all of our previous Wednesday shows going back 6 or 7 months now. So, God, there's probably 25 or 35 shows out there you've never heard us do. So if you'd like to become a member, there's a link to very easily do it in the description, along with some hot sauce, along with a merch link, which hopefully you all took advantage of last week with that 20% off everything in the store. I think this week it's like free shipping or something like that if you buy a certain thing. I don't know exactly what it is, but last week was the time to do it if you're going to do it. But we appreciate anybody out there who supports us.
Yes.
By buying some hot sauce and purchasing merch and becoming channel members. So that is how you can support the show and get some damn good hot sauce, get some cool swag like the hat I got on, like the shirt Joe's got on right now. He's got on the Joey Scars Memorial Scooter Wreck of 2023 shirt. I love it.
Which was also featured in the thing you just showed, the character.
Oh yes. Our lovely
what's it called?
Toys.
Action figure. Yes.
Yeah, action figures. Yes.
Yeah, that's yes.
You actually have 2 scooters in that one.
I know. The other one had more band-aids.
Yeah, that's not even the worst picture. I don't know why I didn't use the other one.
Well, I know why, because it says Joe Borelli, the the Scafuza.
Well, I don't care. I'd still put.
No, I know. Thankfully, our grateful host of the site has not picked that up as
a bad word.
Yeah, yet.
The Scafuza.
But we're also saying it completely wrong, and I'm calling myself that. So
yeah, we're self-deprecating here.
Folks. Yes. But yeah, fascinating shit, Rob. I have a couple comments here that I starred. Want to welcome Craig Mallory, first time joining in live. What's up, Craig?
What's up, Craig? It might be Craig and Mallory.
Oh, it could be. Yes. Alpha 66 is here, a little late. Better late than never.
Mike.
Hello, Mike. Getting drunk with James Angleton. I mean, I would pay a lot of money to do that, to go back in the day and do that, because that would be fun as hell.
Doing acid with James Angleton.
Oh, I mean, that's priceless, bro. James, court lost an eye on Iwo Jima. He was in the Pacific. I read it was the Battle of Guam, but at the end of the day, they're both islands in the Far East. So,
yeah, he flew back from Hawaii, wherever he was before that, where he may have lost an eye. I don't know.
Yeah. Perpetual Concepts. Happy Friday, all. Triple B and the JOEB. How are you, sir? Of course, one of our super spies. James also said, hold on. Cord blamed Mary for the death of their son. And yeah, we had talked about that accident. And yeah, that will blow up a relationship, especially if you have one eye and the girl is dope as hell. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very sad age too. I mean, the kid was 9 years old, so it wasn't like it was just born or something, or it wasn't grown. It was 9 years old, which is a horrible age to lose. I mean, any age is a horrible age to lose your son, or your daughter, but
yeah,
9 is horrible because you've had 9 good years with them. They're starting to grow into that person that they're going to be, and then that's it.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, things like that will break up a marriage. I mean, even if you have a strong relationship, I mean, that type of tragedy is sometimes unrecoverable. James, at first glance, it seems it's a straightforward criminal case. He's talking about the death of Mary Pinchot Meyer, but boy, some of the circumstances, like the timing of witnesses, the couple, the jogger, plus his background, make it highly suspect. I agree.
Yeah. But I mean, why are you going to try and rape a white lady in
Broad
broad
daylight in
And
Georgetown.
and she says, no, you just kill her. I mean, what kind of sense does that make?
It doesn't add up to me from the surface. James also said Cord emerged from World War II, committed to world peace, but later evolved into a hardcore Cold Warrior. And again, another possible reason of why their marriage could have kind of went different ways.
Yeah. Converted by Dulles and Angleton.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. I could definitely see that happening. According to many, Paula with the Mike comment of the night here. According to many, her finest asset was best appreciated when walking away. I am no judge of such things. She had a nice ass, Rob.
Well, yeah. I like Kramer from Seinfeld. I'm an ass man. So all good.
Yes, thank you for that, Paula. Tiny Angleton.
Let's prove it.
Tiny says Angleton is Langley's biggest failure. The mess he created left the counterintelligence unit so screwed they had to practically burn it to the ground and start over. Facts.
Yeah.
He did run it kind of into the ground. Yeah, sure.
But they gave him the keys to the castle, and that's what he did with it. And yeah, they had to dig themselves out of a big, big hole.
Yeah. James, also William Colby, who fired James Jesus Angleton, came to an interesting and also, yes, one of the more sus ones on my list. That is for sure. Yes.
We could have easily thrown this into our suspicious CIA murders.
We should have. Not that we have that much time left because I have 30. Roger is here. What's up, buddy?
What's up, Raj?
Yes.
Lee Harold Oswald in the house.
And NK is here. What's up, bud? Sullivan was accidentally shot just before he was to testify a la Roselli, a la DeMoran, a la Giancana, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Sullivan with the FBI?
Yeah, I think that's what he's talking about because Sullivan comes up on a lot of documents that we've studied.
Yeah, W.C. Sullivan.
Yeah. I don't know much about his death, actually anything, but maybe we'll look into that in the future, Rob.
Maybe next Wednesday.
You never know. All right. So a lot of good comments from the chat here. I know I spent a couple minutes on that, but
a couple others real quick, Joe.
Sure.
Lee is up in the house.
Oh, Lee.
Hell comes to play the bloody benders. And Colleen has a burning question. Why does Joe have legs, but Triple B doesn't?
Legs?
Inquiring minds want to know.
Yes. Oh, I see.
As you see?
Yes.
I'm such a big fella, Colleen. They couldn't fit me all of me in the package.
But
if you know what I'm saying.
Also, Rob, sometimes AI, how you could tell it's AI, is it messes up the fingers, right? There'll be 6 fingers or something like that.
Dude, this AI has got a lot better because there's like the one on the right screwed up because they put the scooter in there twice, right?
Right.
But on mine, I have no legs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because those are actually camo shorts and, there may or may not have been something peeking out the bottom. I don't know. That's why they cut it off. I don't know. It's hard to tell. They did spell Stone Temple Pilots correctly, though, so I was happy about that. That's all you can ask for.
Oh, man. That is funny.
I'm actually 7'3", Colleen. I have very long legs.
Yeah, and James with a good comment. Sullivan ran COINTELPRO for the FBI, so.
Yeah.
So
they may have smelled a dirty rat. That's why they wanted to meet with these guys. The CIA were like, did y'all have anything to do with this shit?
Yeah. And Turn is here. What's up, buddy? He said Stone Temple Pilots were awesome. I saw them live on the second album tour.
Tell you what, real quick, as an aside.
I set that up for you, bro.
Okay. I believe it was 2001 or 2002. The best concert that I was at was in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, which is not that far away from me. They had a rock festival, for the beer up in Latrobe. I think it was Rolling Rock. But they had like a festival. Stone Temple Pilots played there. It is on YouTube. It's an hour-long set, and they fucking ripped it from beginning to end. And they were on point. Like one of them were, they had just gotten back together after breaking up. They had just put out a new album, and they were on fire. So if you can find that concert, it's a good hour. Wheeland is on it from the beginning to the end. It's great. Just a recommendation from your Uncle Rob.
If they find it, do you have it? Should they email the Lone Gunman Podcast at gmail.com?
If you can't find it, holler at me. I'll send you a link. But just Google, Stone Temple Pilots, Latrobe. It should pop right up.
Nice. Cool. So, in continuing with our theme, and Rob, I never want to hear you say I take up too much time again. An hour and 36 minutes into this. I'm just messing.
I want to hear it. This is the position you put me in every week, Joe. I come in, I'm like, damn, Joe's already taken up an hour and 22 minutes.
It happens. It does happen. And the funny part about what I'm going to talk about, which is Gary Underhill, is that it was initially set to be my topic on Wednesday. And an hour and a half in, I was like, I don't think I have time for this, Rob. So an hour and a half and 6 minutes in now, I will try my best. But obviously, Gary Underhill is a story that has come mainstream, I think you would say, post the document release, right? Last month. It was big in a lot. It was getting a lot of news coverage. And of course, people like us who have studied the subject are aware that it has been around for a very long time. But I have a 40-second clip here of an example of what the mainstream media
the day after the assassination
is saying about the Underhill story. And then I'm going to go into some of it and let you guys judge for yourself.
The day after the assassination, CIA agent Gary Underhill, quote, left Washington in a hurry late in the evening. He showed up at the home of friends in New Jersey. He was very agitated. A small clique within the CIA was responsible for the assassination, he confided. And he was afraid for his life. He was afraid he would probably have to leave the country. Less than 6 months later, Underhill was found shot to death in his Washington apartment. The coroner quickly ruled that a suicide. I'm no expert, but to me, that would be a conspiracy right there. That would suggest that our own CIA played a role in killing our 35th.
All right. A little embellishing here from the mainstream media here. So Gary Underhill, what was up with this Skafuza, huh? Well, I had, of course, kind of known the basics, but was kind of refreshed. But this is the document that was released in the recent 2025 releases about Gary Underhill. And we have to pay very close attention here to the wording of this, okay? The wording. This is a CIA document of July 1967. But the subject is Ramparts, the magazine. John Garrett Underhill Jr. and Samuel Cummings and Inter Amco. Ramparts of June 67th, volume 5, number 12, page 2029, contains the following passages about subjects. So it's important to note that this is a CIA document addressing the article, right? So they are now quoting the article. They are not saying this is exactly what happened, but it's kind of how the mainstream media has portrayed it. Quote, the day after the assassination, Gary Underhill left Washington in a hurry. Late in the evening, he showed up at his home of friends in New Jersey. He was very agitated. A small clique within the CIA was responsible for the assassination, he confided, and he was afraid for his life and probably would have to leave the country. Less than 6 months later, Underhill was found shot to death in his Washington apartment. The coroner ruled it a suicide. J. Garrett, or Gary Underhill, had been an intelligence agent during World War II and was a recognized authority on limited warfare and small arms. A researcher and writer on military affairs, he was on a first-name basis with many of the top brass in the Pentagon. He was also on intimate terms with a number of high-ranking CIA officials. He was one of the agency's, quote, un-people, UN-people, who performed special assignments. At one time, he'd been a friend of Samuel Cummings of Inter-Armco, the arms broker that numbers among its customers the CIA and, ironically, Klein Sporting Goods of Chicago, from whence the mail order Carcano allegedly was purchased by Oswald. So again, this is just a document quoting the article. And it goes on to say the friends whom Underhill visited say he was sober but badly shook. They say he attributed the Kennedy murder to a CIA clique which was carrying on a lucrative racket in gun running, narcotics, and other contraband, and manipulating political intrigue to serve its own ends. Kennedy supposedly got wind that something was going on and was killed before he could, quote, blow the whistle on it, end quote. Although the friends had always known Underhill to be perfectly rational and objective, they at first didn't take his account seriously. Quote, I think the main reason was, explains the husband, that we couldn't believe that the CIA could contain a corrupt element every bit as ruthless and more efficient than the mafia. The verdict of suicide in Underhill's death is by no means convincing. His body was found by a writing collaborator, Asher Burns of the New Republic. He had been shot behind the left ear, and an automatic pistol was under his left side. Odd, says Burns, because Underhill was right-handed. Burns thinks the pistol was fitted with a silencer, and the occupants of the apartment could not recall hearing the shot. Underhill obviously had been dead for several days. The article ends, Underhill's chilling story is hardly implausible. As a spy apparatus, the CIA is honeycombed with self-contained cliques operating without any real central control. So that is the document that has been around for a long time, and I'm going to bring up my little not so fancy PowerPoint here and show you exactly what part of this document from the most recent release last month was redacted. And this won't surprise you, Rob. It has to do with agency funds. So if you look on the left here, it says 58. This is about Cummings issued sole ownership to Inter-Armco. And on the right side, what was redacted, an agency audit established the net worth of these companies around $219,000. So again, financial things.
Yeah, and I think Inter-Armco was also one of the companies that was buying up these shitty rifles post World War II and then selling them to places like Klein Sporting Goods.
That would make sense. That would make sense. Yeah, for sure. So on the left side here, you're going to see under the 250,000, the couple, the 2 or 3 lines after that is redacted. On the right, in the most recent release, these items were to remain property of the CIA, and their cost was to be returned to the agency after they were sold, aka Inter-Armco was a CIA-funded company. That's what they're redacting. Nothing to do with Underhill per se. And On the left side, this contact is still maintained until recently. The principal purpose was to dispose of arms, redacted on the right side, and the CIA made a sizable profit on these transactions. So that, again, is a part that's redacted.
Arms dealing by the CIA. Shocker.
Yes, and that is what Underhill was involved with. He was involved with arms dealing, and that's how this story kind of starts. So it starts. So let me just back up for a second. The day after the assassination, Underhill goes from Washington, D.C. to New York, New Jersey, to his friends, the Fitzsimmons, frantic, saying, this is a little more than 24 hours after the assassination, saying the CIA and some clique was involved in it. He ended up staying. This is very interesting. The Fitzsimmonses, his wife, who received him at the door, and her husband, who was asleep at the time, who she didn't actually end up waking up once he came in. He came in, he kind of spouts some kind of random stuff, and
sounded like
left.
a crazy person.
Well, that's definitely what the documents seem to say that he was, but again, we can't 100% trust it, so we'll let the audience make up their mind. But the Fitzsimmonses would not put him up at their home, and he then left, and they never saw him again. From that point on, from November 23rd, 1963, to when he died on May 8th, 1964. So you're talking 6+ months after.
Not even 6 months after.
Yeah, close to that. He did not write anything about the assassination. He didn't approach the FBI or the Warren Commission or any other agency. And on May 8th, 64, he was found in his apartment, unconscious, by his writer friend and an unnamed medical student, bullet wound in his head. And I think a lot of the suspicion here comes from the fact that this writer said that he was right-handed and the bullet wound was behind his left ear. So that's, I think, the basis of most of this conspiracy.
The gun was also in his left hand, and he was laying on his left hand with the gun in it.
Well, could he have fallen on it?
I don't know. I'm just saying.
Right.
It just makes things a little bit more sus.
Right.
When you compare these things to who was the guy? I believe his name was Gary Webb. The guy that uncovered the CIA crack thing in LA.
Oh, his name
made
rings
a movie
a bell.
about it, and he allegedly shot himself twice in the head to commit suicide.
Mm-hmm.
He had two gunshot wounds to the head, and they ruled it a suicide.
Yeah, or the Clinton guy, Vince Foster, that had the shotgun chest to the heart. That was
show just filled with suspicious CIA-linked deaths. I mean,
right.
There's an MO to all these things.
Yeah, for sure. So at first,
And Joe, if something ever happens to me, come down here to Virginia and get my diary, please. It's very important.
I will. I will have all your secrets of the assassination in it.
Come get my laptop. That's the modern day diary, right?
Can I take?
Come get this thing.
Can I take some of the merch?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely the kitty to look after.
Yeah, somebody's got to feed the kitty.
Is she quiet tonight?
Yes, she's feeling much better. She hasn't puked once today.
Oh,
tonight.
That's good. That's good.
Hallelujah.
So Underhill died in May of 1964, but the drama starts about 3 years after, in June of 67, when ramparts magazine runs this article about Underhill, and this is a little snippet from it. Day after assassination, Gary Underhill left Washington in a hurry. Late in the evening, he showed up at friends in New Jersey, very agitated, said a small clique within the CIA was responsible for the assassination. He confided and was afraid for his life and would have to leave the country. I said that. He had been an intelligence agent during World War II and was a recognized authority on limited warfare and small arms, a researcher and writer on military affairs. He was on, I already read that. Fuck. The verdict, did I read that too? It's all a blur. Yeah, I think I did read most of this. So it started off with an article in Ramparts, June of 67. And 3 months later, in October 67, Garrison picks up his story and talks about it to his interview with Playboy magazine. And by the way, I got a lot of this, Rob, and a lot of you might roll your eyes. Fred Litwin wrote a good article on Underhill that includes a lot of the documents I'm going to be showing. I mean, I'm showing both sides, but
yeah, great guy.
He does he picked up a lot of correspondence from Underhill's friends that I'm going to get into shortly. In the days and months after this, they wrote House of Representatives, congressmen, and there was this whole, inquiry that went into it. And then, of course, as we know, Rob, CIA gets word of this, and what do? They send emails to each other and be like, "What's up with this? Did we employ this guy?" Because they don't really know.
Yeah, let's act innocent and pretend we don't know anything about this.
Yeah. So we'll see that. But
somebody said what?
Yeah. So actually, I'm going to kind of skip this. Do you lend credence to the charges of a former CIA agent, J. Garrett Underhill, that there was a conspiracy within the CIA to assassinate Kennedy? Garrison: I've become familiar with the case of Gary Underhill, and I've been able to ascertain that he was not the type of man to make wild or unsubstantiated charges. Underhill was an intelligence agent in World War II and expert in military affairs, blah, blah, blah. He wasn't a full-time CIA agent, but he occasionally performed special assignments for the agency. Several days after the president's assassination, Underhill appeared at the home of friends in New Jersey, apparently badly shaken, and charged that Kennedy was killed by a small group within CIA. Do you believe Underhill was murdered to silence him? Garrison says, I don't believe it, and I don't disbelieve it. Isn't that a prosecutor's answer there?
Very Garrison-esque answer.
Yeah. All I know is that, Garrison continues, that witnesses with vital evidence in this case are certainly bad insurance risks. In the absence of further and much more conclusive evidence to the contrary, however, we must assume that the plotters were acting on their own rather than on CIA orders when they killed the president. As far as we have been able to determine, they were not in the pay of the CIA at the time of the assassination, and this is one of the reasons the president was murdered. I'll explain later what I mean by that. But the CIA could not face up to the American people and admit that its former employees had conspired to assassinate the president. So from the moment Kennedy's heart stopped beating, the agency attempted to sweep the whole conspiracy under the rug. The CIA had spared neither time nor the taxpayers' money in its efforts to hide the truth about the assassination from the American people. And, that's a little snippet from his very famous interview with Playboy magazine that kind of blew everything up. And this also from Litwin's article is a screenshot of his death certificate. So he went back to D.C. right after he was up north, and about 6 months later, gunshot wound to the head and brain, and describe how injury occurred. Shot self in head with automatic pistol. Pretty straightforward there. So But I didn't know this, but Larry Hancock had written a couple paragraphs about him in his book, Someone Would Have Talked, in a chapter called Loose Ends, which is very interesting. Let me see where I am here.
If only someone would have talked.
Yes. A small clique within the CIA. This paragraph starts when Gary Underhill arrived at his friends, Robert and Charlene Fitzsimmons, home in New York City. I tend to believe Larry was New York City, not New Jersey, but it doesn't really matter. It was late, and he was excited and scared. The couple, the Fitzsimmonses, were preparing for a trip to Europe, and Robert was ready to sleep. Underhill spoke with Charlene at length while she continued packing for the trip. Underhill was concerned because he had become aware of a small clique. We read that. These individuals had Far Eastern connections. Narcotics were mentioned, and supposedly the clique was manipulating political intrigues to serve their own ends. Underhill believed that these individuals had been involved with JFK's murder. He felt that JFK had become aware of their dealings and was about to move against them in some fashion. He also believed the members of the clique knew that Underhill was aware of their dealings and that his own life could well be in jeopardy. Underhill fled Washington in fear for his life, avoiding his normal haunts at the Harvard Club in D.C. At the time, the Fitzsimmonses were totally baffled by Underhill's remarks. Later, they related Underhill's remarks to certain other close friends, and in 1966, when concerns about possible Kennedy conspiracy began to be elevated due to the Garrison investigation, one of these friends began his own inquiry and recontacted them. At that point, Robert Fitzsimmons remarked that the reason they had really not taken Underhill seriously was that they couldn't believe the CIA could do it.
Right.
And then he talks about how his initial remarks were or the story debuted in Ramparts magazine, and then later in Garrison, and later a follow-up in Ramparts magazine. Although not addressed by the FBI investigation or the Warren report, Underhill's remarks did come to some attention at the HSCA, and some attempt was made to determine his possible source of information. Given Underhill's interest in tracking arms shipments, one name strongly considered by HSCA investigators was that of Mitch Werbel, an individual reportedly involved with both arms sales and Cuban affairs.
And silencers.
Yes, and silencers. Yeah, good point. He might have gotten it from his silencer from Werbel himself. What did Underhill know is the next paragraph title. Underhill's friends had the impression that he offered no direct knowledge of the conspiracy against John Kennedy. He had not heard any specific chatter or rumor or names. They had felt that his reaction was a response to the initial media coverage of the assassination, plus his own special insights into the activities of the clique, which he described. Their initial skepticism had a good deal to do with their unwillingness to accept that this could really happen. Unfortunately, we have no detailed information on Underhill's own researches into 1963. However, we do know that one of his areas of study and expertise was international arms shipments. His friends relate that he was constantly tracking shipments of arms and contraband, and clearly he was connected to many of the major sources and agents of such arms shipments, Inter-AMCO only being one example. We also know that he was interested in Cuban military issues in 1963, specifically the issue of Russian missiles in Cuba. Where this interest had led him and whom he may have contacted, we have no idea. The other clues we do have are that Underhill felt that the clique had Far Eastern connections, and there were suggestions drugs may have been involved with some of the gun running, probably to finance it. Bringing up that sort of scenario in 1963 would have certainly sounded, quote, wild and preposterous as the fact that a clique might have been able to manipulate certain political intrigues for their own interest. We can't present any conclusive proof that Underhill's clique actually had any direct connection to the assassination of the president. Underhill only guessed that based on his knowledge of its agendas and capabilities. Unfortunately, his friends were not prepared to solicit or record any details or names from Underhill. Still, given his expertise, connections, and interests as of 1963, it's quite probably that he had become aware of a group of CIA officers who were either involved in or provided support for the murder of the president. So that's from Larry Hancock. He doesn't just pick up any bullshit and run with it.
This is true.
So, you know, it kind of brings up the question, was he killed because of something related to JFK, because of something related to gun running, or Cuba, or something completely unrelated, or he was banging his neighbor's wife, like Pinchot Meyer. I don't know.
Yeah, but normally, you know, a guy that's never had any issues in the past doesn't go running the day after the assassination to his friends. Frantic, so frantic that they won't let him stay there.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's lost his damn mind.
We're gonna get into this, Rob, because were the Fitzsimmonses that good of friends to him, and we're gonna figure this out now. So there were some friends of his. So of course he died in May of 1964. Some of his friends started inquiring about his death, and like I mentioned before, they ended up writing congressmen. And it ended up resulting in a CIA internal inquiry. But this is one of his friends, John Donovan. Actually, wait. Oh, no, I'm sorry. This is to his friend, John Donovan, from another friend of his, Paul Ogle. Dear Mr. Donovan. Yes, sir.
I said from Paul Blow.
Dear Mr. Donovan, Mrs. Underhill, Gary's wife, has asked me to write you regarding your correspondence inquiring about Gary Underhill. She has done so because I was an old friend of Gary's and was in touch with him much more frequently than she was since their separation. So he was separated from his wife for, I think, a little more than a year. So got to keep that in context here.
Interesting letterhead there too that this was written on.
Yes, I'm going to get into that too. Falcon Aeronautics. Remember that. Fuck. Mrs. Underhill has asked me to write you regarding your correspondence inquiring about Gary Underhill. I already wrote it. I am quite sure that his comments regarding President Kennedy's assassination were hallucinatory. He had never mentioned that these fears to me, although I had seen him off and on last winter, but they are similar to those flights of his imagination which he had during the last year or so of his life. Gary had been, for a short time, under psychiatric treatment about a year and a half ago. He unfortunately did not carry on with it and deteriorated to quite an extent. Unfortunately, those of us who had known Gary for many years were not able to help him nor persuade him to seek medical assistance. Okay, so this is from a friend of Underhill's corresponding with his wife a month after his death. So again, take it for what it is, decide it for yourself. So then, of course, a couple months later, the CIA gets word of this from the initially from the Garrison investigation it started, right? Garrison had, I think it was a DOJ. This is a DOJ CIA document, but they're asking the DOJ all these questions. Like, was Guy Bannister CIA? Was one of the questions I saw, right? And the CIA's answer was no. One word, no. So this is what the Garrison investigation asked about Underhill. Who is the J. Garrett Underhill referred to in Garrison's Playboy interview? I'm sorry, CIA asking itself. as a former CIA agent. Underhill was born, blah, 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 1915, Brooklyn, graduated from Harvard, who I think Pinchot Meyer did too, right?
No, professor.
Oh, she was in the Harvard circles. He was in
an all-girls school.
Okay, sorry. He was in frequent contact with the New York office of the Domestic Contact Service of CIA from late 49 to 50s. Contact was routine. Mr. Underhill was not a CIA employee. And then this is the document I was referring to earlier, the internal document of the CIA asking about the Underhill allegation. And this is the OS indices results. Subject, Underhill, was approved for contact use with caution on November 2nd, 1949, to be used on a limited basis, not to receive classified information above confidential, because insufficient information was available regarding subject. It was known that he had served in the U.S. Army from 43 to 46 and employed as a journalist for Life magazine as a researcher on military items from 38 to 42. While in the Army, he received accommodation for superior work in military intelligence, citing his wide knowledge and independent research in the field of foreign arms, uniforms, and insignia. However, it was noted in a report that when he worked for Life magazine, he was described as a perfectionist, hard to get along with, and his employment was terminated with Life because of the lack of need for a military expert at the time. In a memorandum dated June 67, Domestic Contact Services Office commenting on their use of Underhill, they reported it was routine relationship established with the subject for the purpose of collecting foreign positive intelligence. On or about May 1950, Underhill furnished information about blah, 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 a bunch of stuff that doesn't matter. He came up in a 1957 agency name check concerning his suicide. A copy of the SRS memorandum dated 27 September 67 is attached. It was determined there had been no foul play connected with Underhill's death and that he had committed suicide. So, again, take it for what you will. It's an internal document, right? And let's see. Okay, I'm just going to read the last thing since the first two paragraphs are kind of redundant. This is another instance of ramparts using the alleged statements of mentally unbalanced individuals to bolster their case of CIA's supposed involvement in the assassination.
It's one of those nasty conspiracy theories, folks.
That's what they say. Again, take it for what it's worth. But as we know how documents work, right? Like a story comes out, someone sends an email in the CIA, what's going on with this? Someone in the CIA who has access to what's actually going on responds to what's going on, and you can believe it or not, right? It's just how it works, right?
It depends on the severity of things. No, it's either just no or
hell no.
We looked at this person possibly, but said no.
Right. We might have used him as a contact for possible foreign intelligence 15
nothing
years.
above confidential.
15 years ago, right? And of course, we know that the dates of those are almost certainly not accurate. But to your question earlier, the CIA also did an internal investigation into the Falcon Aeronautics Incorporated.
Aha.
And OS indices results negative on subject firm, negative on Paul Ogle, the guy who wrote that letter. So, and this
it says, William Turner alleged that Falcon Aeronautics was an ad hoc CIA front.
Right. So they are addressing that internally, right? And like someone's asking about it, and then someone's responding, Office of Security, saying negative, right? This is like kind of the timeline of the article.
Or negative, it cannot be tied back to the CIA.
Right. The first it was Ramparts, then Garrison came out with it in Playboy, and that's what started this whole back and forth of documents here.
Right.
So I did find something very interesting in regards to Gary Schoner in a letter to Vince Palomara. Or I'm sorry, Penn Jones. I'm sorry. All these.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think Palomar was alive back.
I know. I messed that one up bad. Penn Jones. They all look the same to me. Sound the same to me. November 26, 68. So this is, not long after these documents we just read are.
Vince Salandria?
It might have been Vince. Did I? Yeah, I might have had it right the first time.
No, there's a difference between Vince Salandria and Vince Palomar.
Yeah, I got those wrong. Yes, thank you.
I think it's Vince Salandria because he was one of those Philadelphia guys, same as Schoner originally.
100%. Yes.
Yeah.
I got my Vinces confused. Thank you, sir.
Bugliosi. Dear Vince Bugliosi.
Good to hear from you, Schoner says. Glad to hear you're going down to see Jim. Of course, Garrison. My major contribution to the case thus far is needling you to get as active as you were before.
A false mystery.
He goes through this whole long letter of all these things he has issues with. He goes on like a whole Nigel thing and this and that. I don't believe Nigel because of this. I believe this guy. I believe Abraham Bolden because of this. Those type of things, right? And this is his little thing on the Underhill story. Schoner writes, the Underhill story, according to the copy of Rampart's file, is probably untrue and at the very least unproven. The Rampart's memos by the guy who did the interviews concluded there was no reason to believe that Underhill was crazy at the time and that there was no evidence that he was either CIA or military. This, quote, close friend to whom he allegedly told his story was not even known by his wife or a friend of his. That's the person he visited. But of course, they were separated at the time, him and his wife. So his wife saying he didn't know him doesn't necessarily mean anything. Again, we see the pattern of evidence in which can either help a lot or hurt a lot. Sensational stuff which Jim and everyone else uses, assuming that it is true, but which is at best unsubstantiated. There is no need for such stuff or even speculation about it unless it is true. All the stuff is extra. It doesn't fill in holes in Jim's case, but rather needlessly elaborates it in a way which causes an enormous credibility gap. Things like this leave Garrison open to destruction by the news media. Anyone seriously studying his claims and their attacks in such an instance would be, I can't read that word, justified. So here is Schoner saying that Garrison needs to focus on things more to the point, I think is the gist of that. So at the end of the day, listen, this dude was military intelligence. He was definitely working with CIA and CIA cutouts to traffic arms. Like Larry Hancock said, he would have had a good idea of the type of people who could have pulled this rogue operation off. And I'm going to agree with him. I think his initial thoughts 24 hours after that some rogue clique probably did it. I would agree with that, working theory wise.
Absolutely.
But, did he have any specifics on the operation? That's a stretch to me. And was he killed 6 months later after threatening to blow the whistle the day after? I'm not there yet, but I don't know.
Well, real quick, Joe. Happy birthday, Sally.
Oh, happy
Happiest
birthday, Sally.
Yes.
Why didn't you tell us earlier?
I know.
We saved the best for last, huh?
Yeah, ready to throw that in there.
Yeah, thank you. Happy 30th birthday, Sally.
Happy 29th. Again.
Yes, when estimating women's ages, you always have to go like younger, just to be on the safe side. Any man. I'm not saying Sally looks old. She looks very good. And
Sally's a lovely
Sally,
woman.
your boy Connor.
She looks damn good in that free Ruby t-shirt.
Yes, her boy
Joe is not purchased yet.
Conor McGregor. It's on the way. It's in the mail. Check's in the mail. Conor McGregor is getting some media recently. I saw in the past day. He's trying to run for president of Ireland. And Sally, if he runs, will you vote for him? Let us know in the comments. I think I know the answer to that question, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
And yes, we should probably say, Joe, I saw it mentioned in the comments earlier that the RFK files were released today.
Yes.
Like 10,000 pages. So,
yeah. I don't know what's going to.
There's not enough time in the day, bro.
There's barely enough time for this.
And all of them never before released or scanned online.
Yeah.
Like you could see them if you actually went to the archives and looked. But
you could have had access to them before.
Possibly, I don't know.
Some of them, maybe. Right. Yeah. I just hope they focus on one thing at a time because they still have 2,400 FBI documents to scan in. That Luna said they didn't have enough archivists to digitize. So stop being so broad.
Sally said he's a knob, Joe. No chance she'd vote for Conor McGregor.
I had that feeling.
That would be a complete and utter shit show if he actually became president of Ireland. But it would be funny.
Yeah,
a lot of news.
I would enjoy that for the entertainment value, but because I know Sally is there, I'll leave her vote up to her. But yeah, man,
Trump get along. Trump likes the UFC.
Yeah, no, he was in the Oval Office a couple weeks ago. So it would be funny for sure. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of touch on the Underhill thing because it's been such a big story in the news, and I didn't really know what to think of it. And I think my recent comments kind of let you know where I kind of land on it right now. But like so many things in this case, it's not cut and dry, right? It's percentage confidence. He definitely knew something. That's for sure.
Or he thought he knew something. Or he was just really depressed that his marriage was over and lost his fucking mind.
I mean, listen, how many times in the case, Rob, have we seen situations like this of people who have been, quote, mentally disturbed? And is this a way to discredit
that was a big
them?
label for them. They're an alcoholic. They're mentally disturbed.
Right.
Look at Ralph Yates. Look at Richard Case Miguel.
Yes,
the
Jack
list goes on and on. Jack Martin.
Yeah. The only thing that seems the only thing that seems interesting to me here is you have these friends of his and all their correspondence like a month or two after his death kind of saying that, right? And again, I don't know. I don't know if these guys were spooks too. I really have no idea. So that's why we need
way, and it matches the old MO of the company, So
that it does.
All add to the conspiracy web of all this shit,
Yeah. But still interesting that the media picks up on this story out of all stories, right? That's what's interesting to me. Like, why? Is it just because it's easy to explain to someone who's looking at it for 2 minutes?
A former CIA person, said the CIA was behind it.
Yeah, that just dead. Right.
Bombshell document released.
Yes. But of course, the redactions weren't even relating to him. They were relating to Armco,
Yeah.
So and how much money they were making, and CIA wanted to keep the profits from this, So again, like everything, it goes much deeper than what is on the surface.
Which is interesting too, because Armco sold their guns to Klein Sporting Goods. Oswald allegedly ordered his rifle from Klein Sporting Goods.
Yeah.
We know Jerry Patrick Hemming put in an application to work at Klein Sporting Goods in Chicago. So who knows, man?
Yeah.
We're down the rabbit hole, Joe.
Yeah, we like to do that. So I'm just
We need Ruby to bring us a rope to pull us up Lassie style.
She's sleeping. She'll
Not
get
for
up.
long.
I know she'll get up in a
Damn.
second. But Deep Politics by Peter Dale Scott is covers the Underhill thing as well, I believe. I think Hancock mentioned that. But yeah, I'll just catch up with some comments. And yeah, 10 more days. You could be a covert operator again. We have missed you, Mr. Mike. 10 more days till I can become one too. I'm a spook, technically.
Well, we appreciate the double E.
Yeah. But yeah, man, that's I thought that was pretty fun. And I will turn on the Ruby cam when you give the word.
All right, folks, that's it for us this week. It's been another bang as usual, as per the usual. I think we got 2 more Wednesdays left in this month.
One more.
I don't know about that, Joe.
Yeah, the next one is 20. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah. I'm looking at Thursday. You're good.
Yeah.
I thought the spooks were going to get lucky.
I think we had 5 Wednesdays this month in this month of April.
5 more members only shows for you to catch up on.
Yeah, so not next week, but week after. We'll be free to spooks and above, but next week will be covert operators and above. So join us if you like. It's always a party on Wednesday nights on the Super Secret Show.
Yeah.
Thank you, Southwest.
Yes.
We had fun doing it, and who knows what tomorrow brings. I think I was supposed to record quick hits tomorrow, but it got pushed back because of the Easter holiday.
Okay.
So we'll be recording quick hits next Saturday.
Okay. Yes.
So if you have any questions you'd like answered on quick hits, send an email to what is the address there?
Quick Hits JFK. What is it?
Yeah, quickhitsjfk@gmail.com.
You're welcome.
Let me double check that because that doesn't sound right.
I might be totally wrong. I think it is.
You might be right, Joe.
It is all a blur. That is for sure.
God.
Yes.
Yeah. Quickhitsjfk@gmail.com. And yes, Turn Horse, I've got your email. I will check out Wormwood. I just haven't looked for it yet on Netflix. If it's still on there.
Yeah.
I'll be very busy this weekend. It is WrestleMania weekend.
Oh.
So lots of wrestling to watch this weekend.
Very cool. Yes. And Scott, who, if you were in the chat before and I was reading, I didn't see the chat. Hello, sir, and great weekend and happy Easter to all who observe, for sure.
Yes, and Sally, I got your message. I love the t-shirt. You freaking rock. Timothy Redmond, I will get around to answering you, sir, at some point. I'm a very busy man. MP892, I will get around to answering you as well. Jeffrey Sundberg, I'll get around to answering you as well, sir. At some point. Yeah, very busy man.
Yes. Yes, you are, sir. NK with a great quote from Samuel Cummings, who was the Inter Armco guy. He who harms no one fears no one. If that was his quote, that is sus as hell. I trust it is, but wow. That pretty much sums it up, right? And thank you, Randall, for your first staying the whole time for your first live show.
Yes, awesome.
Yes,
glad you dug it. We loved having you here. The more, the merrier. We always say.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jack.
Yeah.
Appreciate all of you guys for hanging out with us tonight. So, without a further ado,
Ruby Cam.
Oh, Ruby. Come on, girl. You know what time it is. Come on. Come on. Come on, Ruby. Time to dance. Come on. You're halfway there. Come on. Good girl. Who's a good girl?
Come here, baby.
Who doesn't love Pinchot?
Ruby loves Pinchot.
Come on, Ruby.
I can't hear him.
The greatest lies are told
I
in the
just
name
woke
of
up,
truth.
you assholes.
The greatest crimes
Make
are
me
committed
dance.
in the name of justice. The quotation is Jim Garrison's. It could be used for him or against him in this strange case. Good night.
Moi.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
And adios. Au revoir.
Yes.